The lecture hall was filled with students from across the galaxy. There were insectoid beings with shiny shells, floating creatures made of gas, and tall beings covered in scales. In the middle of this strange crowd sat one human. His name was Taiho. He was the only human exchange student in Xenobiology 301 at the Galactic Union. Academy Professor Vel stood at the front of the room. He was a large insectoid creature with 4 arms and big compound eyes that could see in every direction. His shell was dark green, and when he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a way that made most students pay attention.
Today, Professor Vel said,
his voice serious, we will discuss the most important rule of xenobiology fieldwork. This rule will save your lives. He pressed a button, and a holographic screen appeared behind him. The image showed a creature that made several students gasp. It was a mass of dark tentacles covered in glowing blue spots. The tentacles moved slowly in the image, and its body seemed to shift like smoke. This is the Void Lurker, Professor Vel announced. It is classified as a Category 9 threat. One touch from its tentacles will inject a toxin into your nervous system. You will be paralyzed in 3 seconds. You will be dead in 30. Student in the front row, a small furry creature from the Pelion system, raised a trembling paw. How do we protect ourselves from it, Professor? You stay away from it, Vel said simply. You do not approach it. You do not try to study it up close. You run in the opposite direction and call for military support. Click to the next image. This creature was even more terrifying. It looked like a massive beast covered in thick armor plates. It had 6 burning red eyes and claws that looked sharp enough to cut through metal. The Keth Beast, Vel continued. Category 10. This creature is responsible for the extinction of 3 entire civilizations. It can tear through starship holes. It fears nothing. The class was silent. Some students looked like they wanted to leave the room and never come back, this Vel said, clicking to a final image as the plasma worm. Category 12. The highest threat level we have. It can generate heat of over 10,000 degrees. It has melted entire research stations. The image showed a serpentine creature with scales that glowed like fire. Its eyes were pure white. Heat waves seemed to radiate from its body, even in the hologram. Professor Vel turned to face the class directly. His compound eyes were very serious. The rule is simple, he said. Never touch, approach, or attempt any contact with unidentified species. The galaxy contains approximately 4.7 million cataloged predators. Many of them can kill you before you even realize you are in danger. Do you all understand? The students nodded quickly. Some of them were already taking notes with shaking hands. Taiho, the human student, raised his hand politely. Professor Vel looked at him. Humans were rare in the academy. Most species found them strange and confusing. They came from a small planet called Earth, and they had only recently joined the Galactic Union. Yes, human. Do you have a question? Taiho scratched the back of his head. He seemed a little embarrassed. Sorry, Professor. I just wanted to say something about that first creature. The Void Lurker. What about it? Well, it looks exactly like my roommate's pet. The lecture hall became completely silent. Professor Vel's mandibles stopped clicking. His forearms froze in the air. I am sorry, the professor said slowly. Can you repeat that? My roommate Yuna has one of those, Taiho said, pointing at the hologram of the Void Lurker. She calls him Mochi. He is really friendly once you get to know him. Student in the back of the room made a choking sound. The Pelion student in the front row fainted, and their water suit made a splashing noise as they hit the floor. Professor Vel walked closer to Taiho. His compound eyes examined the human carefully, looking for any sign that this was a joke. Human, Vel said. Are you telling me that another human keeps a Void Lurker as a companion animal? Yes, Taiho said, nodding. Yuna found him on that field trip to the Obsidian Moons last semester. He was hurt really bad. I think he got attacked by something. So she took care of him, fed him, kept him warm, talked to him every day. She talked to a Category 9 predator. Yeah, she says it helps them feel safe. Professor Vel felt his exoskeleton tremble slightly. In his 300 years of teaching, He had never heard anything like this. The creature did not attack her. He asked, "No, Mochi is super gentle now. He follows Yuna everywhere. She even knitted him a little sweater because he gets cold at night." "A sweater," Vel repeated, his voice flat. "It is pink," Taiho added helpfully. "With little stars on it." Another student fainted. This time it was a tall reptilian being who crashed to the floor with a heavy thud, Professor. Vel turned back to his holographic display. His 4 hands were shaking as he clicked through his slides. He stopped on the image of the Keth beast, the armored monster with 6 eyes and deadly claws. "What about this creature?" he asked, his voice barely steady. "Surely no human would be foolish enough to approach a Keth beast." Taiho tilted his head and looked at the image for a moment. "Oh, that is basically just a duri," he said. "A what?" "A duri. That is what we call them. My friend Han Yule has one. Her name is Bomi. She loves belly rubs." His legs felt weak. A Keth beast that loved belly rubs. This was not possible. This could not be real. "Your friend," Vel said slowly, "gives belly rubs to an apex predator that has destroyed civilizations." "Bomi is very sweet," Taiho assured him. "She is scared of loud noises, though. Hanyul has to cover her ears during thunderstorms." The classroom was in chaos now. Students were talking loudly in panic. Some were trying to leave through the emergency exits. A gas-being student was expanding rapidly with stress. Filling up half the room, Professor Vel raised all 4 of his arms to calm the class. "Everyone, please remain calm," he shouted. But his own voice was not calm at all. He looked at Taiho with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "A human," he said. "How many dangerous creatures do you and your human friends keep as pets?" Taiho thought about it for a moment. "Oh, there's Mochi the Void Lurker, and Bomi the Keth Beast, and my pet Nabi." "What is Nabi?" Taiho smiled warmly. "She is a plasma worm. I found her as a baby. She is really cute. She likes to sleep on my bed because I am warm." Professor Vel stared at the human for a long time. Then, very slowly, he walked to his desk and pressed the emergency communication button. "Security," he said into the speaker. "We have a situation." The news spread through Galactic Union Academy faster than light speed. By the time the afternoon classes ended, every student and professor on campus had heard the story. Humans were keeping Category 9, 10, and 12 predators as pets, not in cages, not in containment fields, but as actual pets that slept on their beds and wore sweaters. Professor Vel had canceled the rest of his classes for the day. He sat in the faculty meeting room with 7 other professors, all of them looking at holographic files about the human students. "This cannot be accurate," said Professor Mira, a tall, crystalline being who taught advanced chemistry. "Humans are a young species. They have only been in space for a few decades. How could they possibly survive contact with these creatures?" "I saw the human say it with my own eyes," Vel replied. "All of my eyes." He was completely calm. He described a plasma worm as cute. Professor Gorn, a massive rock-like being who taught galactic history, slammed his fist on the table. The table cracked. "Then the humans must be eliminated," he said in his deep, grinding voice. "They are clearly too dangerous to be allowed in the academy. If they can control these predators, they could use them as weapons." "We cannot eliminate exchange students," Professor Mira said. "The Galactic Union has rules about this." "Then we must contain the creatures," Vel said. "We need to go to the human dormitory and remove these animals before they cause a disaster," everyone agreed. A message was sent to the Academy's security forces, and within an hour, a team was assembled. Meanwhile, in the human dormitory, Taiho had just finished telling his friends about what happened in class. Yuna sat on the couch with Muchi in her lap. The Void Lurker's tentacles moved gently as she scratched the spot between his glowing blue patches. He made a soft purring sound that vibrated through the room. "You told them about Mochi?" Yuna asked, looking a little worried. "I hope they do not think he is dangerous." "He is dangerous," Hanyul said from the corner of the room. He was sitting on the floor next to Bomi, the Keth beast. The massive armored creature was lying on her side while Hanyul brushed her scales with a special brush he had made. But dangerous does not mean bad. Omi's 6 eyes were half closed with pleasure. Her tail, which could destroy walls with one swing, wagged gently like a happy dog. Minji came out of the kitchen carrying a bowl of food. She was the 4th human student living in the dormitory. She walked over to the kitchen counter where Nabi, the plasma worm, was coiled up waiting for dinner. "Here you go." Princess Mingi said, placing the bowl in front of the serpentine creature. Nabi's scales glowed warmly as she began to eat. A small bow sat on top of her head, slightly crooked. The heat from her body made the air shimmer, but the humans had gotten used to it. They actually liked it during cold nights. "I do not understand why everyone is so scared of them," Taiho said, sitting down next to Yuna. "When I found Nabi, she was so small. She'll fit in my hand." She was shaking and cold and scared. "Because she was a baby," Yuna said, nodding. Same with Mochi. He was hurt and alone. All he needed was someone to show him kindness. Hanyul smiled at Bomi. "Remember when you first brought her home? She was so tiny. Now look at her." Bomi was definitely not tiny anymore. She was the size of a small vehicle, covered in armor plates that could stop laser fire. But right now, she was rolling onto her back so Hanyul could rub her belly. "Good girl," Hanyul said softly. "Who is a good girl?" Bomi's 6 eyes closed completely, and a rumbling sound came from her chest. It was almost like a purr, but deeper and more powerful. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Then another. Then the sound of many footsteps outside. "Human students," a voice called through the door. "This is Academy Security. We are here with a team of professors and xenobiology experts. Open the door immediately." The 4 humans looked at each other. "Should we be worried?" Minji asked. "Probably not," Taiho said, though he was not completely sure. "I will get the door." He walked over and pressed the button to open it. The door slid aside to reveal a crowd of aliens. Professor Vel was at the front, holding what looked like a tranquilizer cannon. Behind him were 20 security officers in full armor, carrying containment shields and various weapons. "We are here to remove the dangerous creatures," Professor Vel announced. His voice was trying to be brave, but his antennae were shaking. "Okay," Taiho said calmly. "Do you want to come in?" Professor Vel had expected resistance. He had expected the humans to fight or run or panic. He had not expected them to simply invite him inside like this was a normal visit. Slowly, carefully, the security team entered the dormitory. Their weapons were raised, their shields activated. They were ready for battle. What they found instead made them freeze in confusion. In the living room, Yuna sat on the couch with the Void Lurker in her lap. The creature was wearing a pink knitted sweater with little stars on it, just like Taiho had described. Its tentacles were wrapped around Yuna's arm gently. It was making that strange purring sound in the corner. The Keth beast lay on its back, all 6 eyes looking at the newcomers upside down. Hanyul was still rubbing her belly. "Bomi, we have guests," Hanyul said to the massive predator. "Be polite." Bomi made a huffing sound and rolled back onto her stomach. She looked at the security team with curiosity, not aggression, and on the kitchen counter, the plasma worm lifted her head from her food bowl. Her scales glowed gently, and the bow on her head wiggled as she tilted her head at the armed soldiers. "That is Nabi," Minji said helpfully. "She is almost done with dinner. Would anyone like some tea?" Professor Vel's tranquilizer cannon lowered slowly. His compound eyes could not believe what they were seeing. "This is impossible," he whispered. One of the security officers, a young Korath like Vel, stepped forward nervously. "Professor, should we begin containment procedures?" Before Vel could answer, Mochi the Void Lurker made a chirping sound and extended one tentacle toward the officer. The officer screamed and jumped backward, crashing into 3 other soldiers. "Oh, he just wants to say hello," Yuna said, laughing gently. "Mochi, that is not polite. You scared him?" Mochi pulled his tentacle back and made a sound that almost seemed apologetic. Professor Vel looked around the room. His mind was trying to understand what he was seeing, but nothing made sense. These were creatures that had killed thousands. Creatures that entire armies feared. And here they were, wearing sweaters and eating from bowls and getting belly rubs. Vel asked finally, "How is this possible?" Taiho shrugged. "We just treat them nice. That is all." "That cannot be all." "It really is," Yuna said, still petting Mochi. "They are not monsters, Professor. They are just animals. And all animals want the same things: food, warmth, safety, and love." Professor Vel stood there for a long moment. Then he reached for his communicator. "This is Professor Vel," he said. "I need to speak with the director of Xenobiology immediately. We have a situation that requires the highest level of expertise." He looked at the humans and their pets one more time. "Possibly a complete rewrite of everything. We know about dangerous species, Director." Cora arrived at the academy the next morning on an emergency shuttle. She was the chief xenobiologist of the entire Galactic Union, a position she had held for over 300 years. Her body was made of living crystal, tall and sharp, with colors that shifted depending on her mood. Right now, those colors were deep purple and red, which meant she was very, very concerned. She had studied dangerous creatures her entire life. She had written the classification system that rated threats from Category 1 to Category 12. She had personally witnessed the destruction caused by void lurkers, keth beasts, and plasma worms. She had lost colleagues, friends, and entire research teams to these animals. And now she was being told that for human students, had these creatures as pets. Vel, as they walked through the academy campus, "Director, I must warn you," Vel said nervously. "What you are about to see will challenge everything you know about xenobiology." "I have studied this field for 3 centuries, Cora replied, her crystal voice cold. "Nothing can surprise me anymore." She was wrong. When they arrived at the human dormitory, Yuna answered the door. She was wearing comfortable clothes and holding a cup of morning tea. "Oh, hello," she said with a friendly smile. "Are you here to see the pets?" Come in, come in." Director Cord ducked her tall crystal body through the doorway and entered the living room. What she saw made her freeze completely. For the first time in 300 years, she could not move or speak. Taiho was sitting on the floor with Nabi, the plasma worm, coiled around him. The creature's scales glowed with gentle warmth, and her head rested on Taiho's shoulder. He was reading something on a tablet while casually scratching under her chin. Hanyul was in the kitchen making breakfast. Bomi, the keth beast, sat next to him, watching him cook with all 6 of her eyes. Occasionally, Hanyul would give her a small piece of food, and her armored tail would wag happily, and Minji was on the couch with Mochi, the void lurker. She was brushing his tentacles with a special comb while he made that strange purring sound. His pink sweater had been replaced with a blue one today, with little moons on it. "Welcome to our home," Yuna said cheerfully. "Would you like some tea? We have several types." Director Kor's crystal body flickered between colors rapidly. Purple, red, yellow, green. Her emotions were completely confused. "This is not possible," she finally said. "I have personally seen void lurkers destroy research stations. I've watched keth beasts tear through armored vehicles. I have witnessed plasma worms melt entire buildings. These creatures are killers." "They can be," Taiho agreed, looking up from his tablet, "but they do not have to be." "What do you mean?" Taiho gently moved Nabi aside and stood up. The plasma worm made a soft, complaining sound, but then curled up on the warm spot he had left behind. "On our planet Earth," Taiho explained, "we have many dangerous animals. We have wolves that can kill humans. We have bears that are stronger than any person. We have big cats that are some of the deadliest hunters in nature. But thousands of years ago, our ancestors started living with some of these animals." "Living with them?" Director Kor asked, confused. "Yes, we took wolves and made them our friends. Over time, they became dogs. We took wild cats and made them our companions. We took horses, which could easily kill us, and learned to ride them. Humans have always seen dangerous creatures and thought, maybe we can be friends." Director Kor looked at the void lurker, the keth beast, and the plasma worm. They were the 3 most dangerous creatures in her classification system. and they were being treated like common household pets. But how? She asked. How do you survive the first contact? These creatures attack anything that approaches them. Yuna walked over and sat down next to Mochi. The void lurker immediately crawled into her lap, his tentacles wrapping around her gently. When I found Mochi, he was hurt very badly, she said, her voice soft. Something had attacked him. He was bleeding and scared and alone. When I approached him, he tried to attack me too. His tentacles touched my skin. Director Kor's crystal body flickered. The toxin. You should have been paralyzed instantly, Ozuna admitted. For about 30 seconds, I could not move at all. It was very scary. But then something strange happened. The paralysis wore off. That is impossible. The void lurker's toxin is permanent. We thought so too. But it turns out that humans have a very strange immune system. We can adapt to many toxins that other species cannot. After that first touch, Matcha's toxin did not affect me anymore. Director Kor turned to Han Yul, who was now feeding Bomi pieces of breakfast meat. And the Keth beast? How did you survive approaching one of those? Han Yul smiled and patted Bomi's armored head. I found her when she was just a baby. She was maybe the size of a small dog. Her mother had been killed by hunters and she was starving. I gave her food and kept her warm. She bonded with me. Keth beasts do not bond. They are solitary predators.
They are.
Han Yul agreed. But babies need care, no matter what species they are. Bomi saw me as her protector. And now, she sees our whole group as her family. Bomi looked up at Director Kor with her 6 red eyes. For a moment, the director felt fear. This creature could destroy her in seconds. But then Bomi tilted her head curiously, like a confused puppy. And the fear faded. And the plasma worm? Kor asked, looking at Nabi on the floor. Teho walked back over and sat down next to his pet. Nabi immediately moved to curl around him again, her warm scales pressing against his side. I found Nabi on a volcanic moon, he said. She was just an egg that had been separated from her mother. I kept the egg warm until it hatched. When Nabi came out, I was the first thing she saw. To her, I am her parent. Plasma worms do not have parental bonds, Kor protested weakly.
Maybe they do, but no one has ever survived long enough to find out.
Until now. Director Kor stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by the 3 most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. And for the first time in 300 years, she felt something she had not felt since she was young. She felt wonder. Your species, she said slowly, has a death wish. You approach deadly creatures with no protection, no weapons, no plan. You simply offer them kindness and hope for the best. When you say it like that, it does sound a little crazy, Minji admitted with a laugh. It is crazy, Kor said. It is absolutely insane. She paused, watching Mochi curl up in Yuna's lap. Watching Bomi rest her massive head on Hanyul's knee. Watching Nabi make happy chirping sounds as Taiho rubbed her scales. But it works, the director continued, her voice filled with amazement. Against all logic, against all science, against everything we know about these creatures, it works. She reached for her communicator. This is Director Kor, she said. Contact the Galactic Union Science Council. Tell them we need an emergency meeting. We have discovered something that will change. Xenobiology forever. She looked at the 4 humans and their impossible pets. Tell them to prepare for a very long discussion. Galactic Union Science Council meeting lasted for 7 hours. Scientists, military leaders, government officials from across the galaxy watched through holographic screens as Director Kor presented her findings. She showed videos of the human students interacting with their pets. She shared medical data about human immune systems. She explained theories about cross-species bonding that had never been tested. Before, because no one had ever survived long enough to test them, the reactions were mixed. Some council members were terrified. They wanted the creatures destroyed immediately and the humans removed from the academy. They saw this as a threat to galactic safety. Others were fascinated. They wanted to study the humans, understand their unique abilities, possibly learn from them. And a few, A very small few were inspired. In the end, the council reached a decision. The creatures would not be destroyed. The humans would not be punished. Instead, a new research program would begin, focused on understanding how humans had achieved the impossible. A week later, a team of alien scientists arrived at the human dormitory. They brought equipment, cameras, scanners, and notebooks filled with questions. They were going to document everything. Leading the team was Director Core herself. She had not stopped thinking about what she had witnessed, and she needed to understand it better. "We will observe your daily routines," Core explained to the humans. "We will record how you interact with the creatures. We want to understand exactly what you do differently." "And that is fine," Taiho said with a shrug. "But we do not really do anything special. We just live with them as what we need to document the living." The study began immediately. The first thing the scientists noticed was how casual the humans were around their pets. There was no fear, no hesitation, no careful movements. They treated Mochi, Bomi, Nabi the same way they treated each other. When Yuna woke up in the morning, she would greet Mochi with a cheerful voice. "Good morning, Mochi. Did you sleep well?" The Void Lurker would make happy chirping sounds and follow her to the kitchen. When Hanyul made breakfast, he always made extra for Bomi. "Here you go, big girl. Eat slowly. You always eat too fast." Her massive jaws, careful not to hurt him. When Taiho studied for his classes, Nabi would coil around his shoulders like a warm scarf. "Stay still, Nabi. I need to concentrate." The plasma worm would make a soft sound and rest her head on his arm, her glowing scales providing light for his reading. The scientists recorded everything, but they still did not understand. "Why do they not attack you?" asked one researcher, a thin insectoid from the same species as Professor Vell. "Our data shows that these creatures attack anything that comes close." "They attack threats," Yuna explained patiently. "We are not threats. We are family. But how do they know you are not threats?" Yuna thought about this for a moment. Then she picked up Mochi and held him in front of the researcher. The Void Lurker's tentacles waved gently, and his glowing patches pulsed with soft light. "This is Dr. Fennon," Yuna said to her pet. "He is a friend. He will not hurt you." Then she looked at the researcher. "Dr. Fennon, this is Mochi. He is my friend. He will not hurt you, unless you try to hurt me first." She said these words simply, without drama or ceremony. But the meaning was clear. The relationship was based on mutual trust and respect. Mochi protected Yuna, and Yuna protected Mochi. They were equals. "On Earth," Minji added from the couch, "we have been living with animals for a very long time. We learned that the best relationships are partnerships. We take care of them, and they take care of us." Director Core made notes on her crystal tablet. Partnership. This is a concept we do not apply to dangerous fauna. "Maybe that is the problem," Taiho said gently. "You see them as fauna, as threats, as things to be afraid of. We see them as individuals, as beings with feelings and needs and personalities." "The Keth beast has destroyed civilizations," Core reminded him. "And humans have destroyed entire species on our own planet," Taiho replied. "Does that make all humans monsters? Or does it mean that sometimes, when creatures are scared or hungry or threatened, they do terrible things?" Director Core had no answer to this. The study continued for 3 more weeks. The scientists observed everything. They watched Yuna give Mochi baths, carefully cleaning between his tentacles while he made contented sounds. They watched Hanyul trim Bomi's claws, a process that would have been suicidal for anyone else, but was completely safe because Bomi trusted him. They watched Taiho and Nabi play together, the plasma worm chasing a ball of light that Taiho has created with a holographic toy. But the most important moment came near the end of the study. One of the researchers, a young scientist named Pell, was walking through the dormitory when he tripped over a cable and fell. His equipment scattered across the floor, and he let out a cry of pain as he hit the ground. Bomi, who had been sleeping in the corner, immediately jumped to her feet. Her 6 eyes focused on Pell, and a low growl rumbled in her throat. For a moment, Every scientist in the room froze in terror, but then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, Bomi walked over to Pell slowly. She lowered her massive head and nudged him gently with her nose. She made a soft whining sound, almost like she was asking if he was okay. Pell lay on the floor, too scared to move. "What is happening?" he whispered. "Huh." Neil walked over calmly. "She is checking on you. She heard you fall and got worried." "Worried?" "Keth beasts do not worry about other creatures. Bomi does," Haniel said with a smile. "She cares about everyone in this dormitory. You have been here for 3 weeks. To her, you are part of the family now." Slowly, carefully, Pell reached out and touched Bomi's armored head. The Keth beast closed her eyes and leaned into his touch, making that deep purring sound. "This is impossible," Pell whispered. But he was smiling now, all fear forgotten. Director Kor watched this interaction with amazement. In 300 years, she had never seen a Keth beast show concern for another creature. She had never imagined it was possible. "I think I finally understand," she said quietly. The humans looked at her, waiting. "You do not just treat them nicely," Kor continued. "You accept them completely. You make them part of your social group. You share your lives with them. And because of that, they share their lives with you." "That's exactly it," Una said, smiling. "We love them. And they love us back. It is really that simple." Director Kor looked at the humans, then at the 3 most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, now behaving like gentle family pets. "Simple," she repeated. "The most important discovery in xenobiology history, and it is simply love." She began writing her final report. 3 months had passed since the study ended. Director Kor had published her findings. The galaxy had reacted with a mixture of disbelief, fear, and growing curiosity. Some species refused to accept the results. They called it impossible, dangerous, irresponsible. But others were fascinated. They wanted to learn more about these strange humans and their unique ability to bond with deadly creatures. The Galactic Union Academy decided to make changes. Big changes. Professor Vell stood in front of his Xenobiology 301 class once again. The lecture hall was even more crowded than before. Word of the human pet incident had spread to every corner of the galaxy, and students from 12 different star systems had enrolled just to learn about it. But this time, Vell was not alone at the front of the room. Beside him sat Taiho, Una, Haniel, and Minji, and beside them, looking calm and content, were their 3 pets. Mochi the Void Lurker was wearing a new sweater, this one yellow with happy faces on it. Bomi, the Keth beast, was lying on the floor, her massive head resting on her paws, and Nabi the plasma worm was coiled around Taiho's shoulders, her scales glowing gently with warmth. "Class," Professor Vell began, his voice much calmer than it had been 3 months ago. "Today we are making an important change to the Academy curriculum. We are revising Rule 1 of Xenobiology Fieldwork." He clicked his control device, and a holographic screen appeared behind him. The old rule was displayed first: never touch, approach, or attempt contact with unidentified species. Then the text changed to show the new rule: never touch, approach, or attempt contact with unidentified species, unless you are or are accompanied by a human. The class murmured with confusion. A large rock-being student raised his hand. "Professor, are you saying that humans can touch any dangerous creature they want?" "Not exactly," Vell replied. "What I am saying is that humans have demonstrated an ability that no other species possesses. They can form bonds with creatures that we considered unbondable. They can show compassion to beings that we considered beyond reach." He gestured to the 4 human students and their pets. "These young humans have taught us something important. Our classification system was wrong. We labeled these creatures as threats, as monsters, as killers. But we never stopped to ask why they attacked. We never tried to understand them." Director Kor stepped forward from the side of the stage. Her crystal body shimmered with calm blue and green colors now. Reflecting her peaceful mood, after extensive research, she said, "We have developed a new term to describe the human approach to dangerous fauna. We call it aggressive compassion. The holographic screen changed to show this new term in large letters. Aggressive compassion, Core continued, is a psychological trait unique to humans. When they see a dangerous creature, they do not automatically assume it is evil. They do not calculate their chances of survival. Instead, they ask themselves one question: can I help this creature? Can I be its friend? This sounds insane, a Pelion student said from the front row. It is insane, Taiho agreed with a smile. But it works. Yuna stood up, holding Mochi in her arms. The Void Lurker's tentacles wrapped around her gently, and his glowing patches pulsed with contentment. When I found Mochi, everyone told me to run, she said. They said he would kill me. They said I was crazy to approach him. But I looked at him, and I saw a creature in pain. A creature who needed help. How could I just leave him? Hanyul stood up next, with Bomi rising beside him. The Keth beast was huge, towering over most of the students in the room. But she moved gently, carefully, watching Hanyul for guidance. On Earth we have a saying, Hanyul said. There's no such thing as a bad animal, only misunderstood ones. Every creature wants the same basic things: food, safety, comfort, and connection. If you can provide those things, you can earn their trust. Bengi smiled from her seat. It takes time and patience. It takes a lot of love, but it is always worth it. A tall insectoid student raised a trembling arm. But what if they attack? What if they hurt you? Taiho considered this question seriously. Sometimes they do. When I first approached Nabi, she burned my hand pretty badly. I still have the scar. He held up his hand, showing a faded burn mark on his palm. But I did not give up. I kept trying. I kept showing her that I was not a threat. And eventually she understood. He looked at Nabi with affection. The plasma worm lifted her head and made a soft chirping sound, nuzzling against his cheek. The risk is worth it, Taiho said. For a connection like this, any risk is worth it. The lecture hall was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, a sound began to spread through the room. It started with one student clapping, then another, and another. Soon, the entire class was applauding. Professor Vel waited for the applause to fade before continuing. Starting next semester, he announced, the Academy will offer a new course: Human Phonobonding Techniques. It will be taught by our human exchange students and supervised by Director Core. Students who complete this course will be certified to attempt first contact with dangerous species under controlled conditions. More excited murmuring spread through the class. This was groundbreaking. This changed everything. However, Vel added, his voice serious, this course comes with a warning. Human aggressive compassion cannot be copied easily. It requires a genuine desire to connect, not a desire to control. Any student who approaches this with the wrong intentions will fail. And failure with these creatures can be fatal. The students nodded seriously. They understood the stakes. As the lecture ended and students began to leave, Yuna approached Professor Vel with a slightly nervous expression. Professor, she said. I wanted to tell you something, yes, Yuna. Last night I was walking back from the library and I heard a strange noise coming from the ventilation system. I looked inside and I found something interesting. Vel's compound eyes narrowed with suspicion. What did you find? Yuna reached into her bag and carefully pulled out a small creature. It had 7 legs, a body covered in metallic scales, and 2 large eyes that blinked up at everyone curiously. It made clicking sounds as it looked around. I do not know what species this is, Yuna admitted, but she seems really friendly. She'll let me pick her up right away. I think she was lost and scared. Professor Vel stared at the creature. He recognized it. It was a Venthrix, a small predator that could release clouds of toxic gas when threatened. Not as dangerous as a Void Lurker or Keth beast, but still enough to kill most organic life forms. Yuna, he said slowly, that creature could kill you with a single breath. Really? Yuna looked at the Venthrix with surprise. Then she smiled. Well, she has not tried to gas me yet. I think she likes me. The Venthrix made another clicking sound and curled up in Yuna's hands, looking completely at ease. Professor Vel sighed deeply. His exoskeleton creaked with the weight of resignation. "Oh, I suppose you want to keep it," he said. "Can I?" Yuna asked hopefully. "I already thought of a name. I want to call her Bujel. It means star in Korean." Director Kaur, who had been watching this exchange, made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I will prepare the paperwork for another dangerous fauna adoption." Vel looked at the human girl holding a deadly creature like it was a harmless pet. He looked at the 3 other humans with their category 9, 10, and 12 companions. He looked at the students watching with amazement and inspiration. "Humans," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. "The most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they can fight, but because they insist on making friends with everything that could kill them." He pulled out his official academy tablet. "Welcome to the family, Bujel," he said, beginning to fill out the form. "Please try not to gas anyone." Yuna hugged the little Venthrix happily. Buell made a contented clicking sound and closed her eyes. And somewhere in the depths of space, the galaxy continued to turn. Completely unaware that for humans and their deadly pets were about to change everything anyone had ever believed about fear, danger, and the power of love.